Welcome, viewers and listeners, to another episode of the Afro Gamer podcast, where we discuss gaming and esports on the continent of Africa. Today, I do have a special guest, and I would allow him to introduce himself. We will be discussing esports brand partnerships in Africa. Hello, Ben. How are you doing today?
I'm very good, thank you. Yeah, great. Very good to be here.
Okay, thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to speak with us.
No problem, pleasure.
So, wasting no time, for those who don't know you, to our viewers and listeners, I would like you to introduce yourself.
Cool. Yeah, so I'm Ben Roberts. I live in Kenya, and I've always liked playing video games. I don't get as much time to play video games as I would like, but I've always seen it as being a core piece of developing skills in computing and ICT, even from an early age for me. But for a living, I have been with Liquid Telecom now for getting on for 18, 19 years since the very beginning. And I'm Chief Technology and Innovation Officer at Liquid Telecom. So we built the largest fiber optic network in Africa, a network of interlinked data centers and cloud and building cloud on and stuff. So gaming is very important technology, I think, for the development of internet overall in Africa, as well as being fun.
Okay, thank you for that. The question now is how active is Ben in esports? I know you say you don't have as much time as you used to previously. How involved are you presently as a person and as Liquid Telecom also?
Yeah. Look, so as Liquid, our activity and journey in gaming started now about 6 or 7 years ago, and a big piece of the challenge for gamers in Africa is just around the bandwidth, the network, and the speed and the latency to play video games competitively with your friends. And this problem became sort of known to me and how it was affecting the video gamers just after we started building fiber in Africa. We did something differently, but a lot of networks, as we moved from being satellite connections to having fiber optic connections in Africa, the satellite connections used to go straight to a satellite earth station in London or in Germany or something like that. A lot of networks started doing exactly the same thing. The subsea cables came and then just get a subsea cable straight to a internet peering point in London or Amsterdam or Paris. And so this was pretty bad for the gamer, because if one gamer was one ISP or in another country in Africa and they wanted to play a game with their friends who were on the other ISP or in another neighboring country, their internet traffic would be going via Europe to servers in Europe, causing a lot of lag on the way they play. So we came across a gaming community in Uganda who were hosting video game servers, and we got involved. They're called Gamers Nights, and we started hosting for them, and we still host for free their video gaming server. We run a bunch of community video game servers. CO4 is one with they're quite popular with the first-person shooters. CS:GO, Minecraft as well for the younger audience. So hosting a bunch of these servers, they introduced me about 3 years ago to the world of esports, and we've really been in multiple countries getting involved with different players, but particularly in Kenya, partnered with Nikon Pro Series Gaming, and Zambia. We've been pretty active as well. We've been supporting Lusaka Comic Con and some of the gaming events around that. But we were doing less of things in other countries, but the more activity in Uganda and Zambia. Uganda, Zambia, and Kenya on the esports and gaming stuff. So really, it's really growing. It's very exciting. It demonstrates the speed and power of internet and fiber internet the best way possible. And for us, it's not only just about brand, the association of Liquid Telecom with esports. It's not just around brand and identifying with a youth digital savvy audience, but it's actually just about demonstrating your product. So, we when we partner with esports events, we go in and we put, they use locations that have fiber, and we don't talk about giving them, 10 gigabyte bundle or 1 megabits per second, anything like that. We go and give them, 10 gigabits per second, and let them play with as much bandwidth as they possibly can, and we really see that they really use it.
Wonderful. Ben, how would you're active in esports? How would you rate, from what you've seen, how would you rate esports in Africa over 10?
It's emerging, but the excitement has been picking and has been building. We've had the events we've supported in Kenya have got bigger and bigger, and bigger and bigger venues, filling up cinemas and having large audiences. They're in present. Things have changed a bit more in 2020. I think for esports globally, and filling stadiums is no longer so easy. But having moved online, it brings back the original challenge we were trying to solve with hosting servers locally. But what we've seen over time is that some of the big gaming companies have started to host servers on the African continent. So the last event we just did in November, we did an event for Pro Series Gaming, the Africa Comic-Con, and that was having players from all over Africa, but it was using Rainbow Six Siege, and we chose that game because Ubisoft had put servers in the cloud data centers in South Africa. So that game at least has online multiplayer servers on the African continent, making it possible for people in different countries, South Africa, Kenya, even the Indian Ocean islands, to compete on an even basis. So I think because it's emerging and small in some countries as well, by bringing it together as a continent is really important. So, okay, it might be bigger in South Africa and emerging in Kenya, emerging in Nigeria, but there's other countries, if they can team up and become part of the tournament. So it's great to see what you're doing with your tournament, having places with people from all over the continent. The Africa Esports Cup is on at the moment as well. So having these Pan-African tournaments, it grows the mass, and then that will help the individual country gaming scene, the esports scenes, to grow too.
Wonderful, wonderful. Do you think 2020 has been a year of revelation for the region? Like, it has opened up the continent to more spotlight in terms of esports?
Yeah. I mean, I think children being at home. A lot of schools have been off. A lot of countries have had schools closed, and I think children being at home playing games online. Those that have consoles at home, and it's not everybody. We have to appreciate that. But those who have been spending more time doing this, and I've lent my PlayStation to my niece in Nairobi, and she's been playing all sorts of things, Fortnite mostly, I think, but she's been playing a lot, and I think she's been bored. So it's the perfect thing to do if you can't go out of the house, if you're in a lockdown and you can't go to school. My own children, they were more into video games than going out before COVID, and now I think it's very much dominated their life of being inside and playing video gaming. And just as a network company as well, we look at some of the traffic going to video game servers. We try and optimize the way that we get traffic, internet traffic from the video game servers, such as Fortnite. We've got I think probably the lowest latency link to Fortnite servers in the whole of East and Southern Africa. We've optimized this very nicely. But I was looking at traffic the other day, and I saw Roblox. I couldn't believe how much traffic we were getting for Roblox.
Oh, wow.
I noticed it before. It's just come up massively. It is. I can't give you the number, but it really was a lot of traffic, and has increased very, very much over the year.
Oh, wow, that's wonderful, really wonderful. So brand partnerships in Africa has been a challenge. If you speak to 10 stakeholders, be it tournament organizers, anyone who is in that space, one thing they would mention, minus structure, obviously, is brands are not buying into esports. With Liquid
Yeah.
Telecoms, it's a different case. You guys are spot on. You are one of the frontliners on the continent. So I think the question is, what are brand managers or brand marketing managers missing on the continent that they can take from Liquid Telecoms?
Now, I had a good chat about this subject a few weeks ago, and there was in this other webinar, there was a guy from South Africa, and he was sort of doing a marketing company for for esports brands, and he managed to get BMW online for the activity he was doing. So, we are seeing this sort of premium brands are starting to think globally about product placement and getting into these places. For people whose product is at the core of gaming, like us, it's a fairly obvious thing, and even a brand like Red Bull, we see Red Bull getting involved in gaming. Okay, it's an energy drink, but there is an association between drinking Red Bull and staying up late gaming. So there's definitely they do a lot of things with adrenaline sports anyway. So for them, it's sort of an easier association. I think that part of the key is esports and gaming is really for the younger consumer in Africa, and I don't think enough companies are taking the younger consumer seriously. So we look at mobile networks; they certainly are. MTN certainly are. Safaricom, Blaze, they have a youth brand. They're certainly taking that youth consumer very seriously. I think I had some numbers. They've got 6 million youth customers on Safaricom network, so it's a sizable chunk of business for them. But we really should be seeing banks doing this. When I went to college, we opened bank accounts for the first time when we went to university, and banks gave us money to open bank accounts. They give us free stuff and cash. You'd open a bank account and you'd get cash in your bank. They know you're going to be a lifelong consumer. So banks need to take this seriously. They need to look at people who are young and target them, because ultimately very few people do swap banks in their life. And I still bank with the same the bank that gave me those offers when I got to university. With the massive rising youth population in Africa, it's time for big brands to get serious about owning the consumer when they're young, because it's a lifelong journey you get when if you're prepared to make a long-term play. And I think BMW, they might not be selling many BMWs to people in their early 20s, but they're thinking about it from a lifelong relationship with a company like BMW. When you've made it a bit more, you might go and buy that sort of car if you've associated your activities with them from the beginning. So really, that's the transition that's got to happen. It's not about the consumer spend that youth has right now. You've got to think about what is the consumer spend that they're going to have through the lifetime of the relationship with the brand. And big brands can afford to do that and think that way.
Okay, thank you for that, Ben. I know, brand partnership is a two-way street between the community itself and the brands, which the number of years you've had in the esports ecosystem, what have you noticed is the disconnect between the community and the brands from the side of the community? And let me use an example. Many say, brands are not jumping into esports, and there's this school of thought where you have to show value. So, for example, if you're coming to Liquid Telecoms, sending in a proposal, you should be showing value, like, hey, we're doing this. This is how telecoms can jump in. What are the things you've seen that are disconnects that could be turned off for, brands to jump on proposals or, any esports project?
Yeah, I mean, our marketing people, I'm in technology in the company, and I'm perhaps been the driver for the association with esports. But marketing people, when they get a proposal from anybody who's coming, I want sponsorship for this. I want, we're doing an event, or they want to see what they call ROI, return on investment. And so as you're making a proposal to a brand and you want sponsorship in an event, you've got to give them some numbers. You've got to be able to tell them, how many people are going to be there, what sort of people, they'd like them to be, the people who are likely to buy from them. They want them to be their future customers or their customers. There's a level of engagement, how much are you engaging with the customers, and things that go associated with that. So, one of our big partners in esports, whenever we do the big event, the annual event, they hype it up. They have an association with radio station, interviews and press and everything else, and they even bring on CNN. So it's you need to get something in there, the media side, the thing to show your what reach you're going to have. And if you're going to have an event that's got 100 people in a hall, or there's 35 people watching online, it's quite hard to get large investments from sponsors. If you're able to reach an audience of 10,000, then you're talking. So it is how to get the reach, and how to show the reach to the marketing managers, because they just want to see numbers. They want to see the numbers that add up to their return on investment.
Okay, I know you just mentioned numbers, but esports is in Africa you have smaller communities, smaller regions. So what kind of numbers are they looking out for? If it's a community of 50 to 100 people, how does that work?
Look, it's it's clearer for us in this matter, because if you're having if you're offering broadband, we're a broadband provider. So I mentioned in Zambia, we do a lot of broadband to consumers. We do an LTE network. So there's an association with activating LTE subscriptions, and if you're doing fast internet that's capable of gaming, it does amplify. So those hardcore gamers, as you like to call them, they do when they're using your internet, if it's working and performing for them, they become brand ambassadors. So it does amplify. They will tell. They're quite good and loyal, but they're honest as well. I mean, if one day we have some fault on the network and the internet sucks, they will contact us. But because of that, we pay attention to them. They have a voice, but they will help and amplify. So in the game of what we're doing, which is providing fast internet, they become recommenders of your services. It's possibly maybe harder for other brands to be able to see that amplification effect.
Okay, we do have a few comments. Let's read. So James said, Ben is a legend. Ben is a legend.
Thank you, James.
Thank you, James. Shaya Owolabi said, good point from Ben on banks tapping into this target market. Banks are going digital, so why not?
Yeah, so, good point. Yeah.
Yeah. So for our viewers, if you have any questions for Ben, if you have any comments, he's speaking on brand partnerships, esports brand partnerships, in Africa. So for Ben, back to you. So for Liquid Telecoms and 2021 in terms of esports, what should we be expecting?
I still, it's hard to know. It's hard to know what's going to happen with live events. We are seeing obviously some countries are getting vaccines for this thing, and we should see some calming of this global crisis we're in. So I can't predict whether we'll start getting live esports events, but I think people who have been doing live events previously have taken a bit of time, but they've worked out how to get them going good and doing them online. So we talk of the new normal, and you know, there's going to be in everything we do, there's going to be this mixed reality experience. It used to be an in-person, on-premises experience. This year we've moved to an exclusively online experience for many things, not just gaming, but for education and for all my insistent Zoom meetings I have all day long in my job, you know. But we're going to have a combination where things will start returning to normal. We will start meeting up in person again. But that online broadcast, I think everybody who's doing any kind of events, not just esports. You know? I mean, yesterday I was involved in an annual science competition in Kenya called Young Scientists Kenya, who would have had a big annual exhibition at the National Exhibition Centre. And we did it a lot online. I've been part of the technical committee planning that and planned for an event all year. And we found people in Kenya who could do online events, and they streamed it nicely. So the experience has grown. People have events companies who've been doing these things for everybody. They've adapted. So it can only grow now. I think it's been a year of change in 2020, while people have worked out what to do. How do we focus their business models? And hopefully, we should get back to normality and be able to, by using the online experience too, it will help these global, help bring this African gaming community together, multiple countries together, which is really exciting. So I like what you're doing. We need to have more of this, bringing things together. I'm involved in another community of video game developers as well, and we're seeing so much interaction taking place between countries. We have a big WhatsApp group. We've got about 25 African countries represented. So bringing everyone into the same space, it can only grow.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you for that, Ben. We do have a question here for you, and that is from our department. He said, what is considered good ROI? Which KPIs do marketing divisions find most important, since Africa esports is growing, it's unrealistic to expect international numbers. He also said, you mentioned having 10,000 viewers and then being able to get great investment, but that is not the norm in Africa. So if that is not the norm, how can brands expect it?
Yeah, good question. Different people measure ROI in different ways, but as we've moved into the world of social media and on online advertising, a lot of things are measured in engagement scores, likes and shares, and everything else. But the real bottom line is, how does marketing activity convert into leads that convert into sales? So the hard question that people want to ask is, how much am I going to sell out of this? What is going to be the incoming leads, and how much am I going to convert into business? And that is harder to quantify if you're doing an event, but you need to be able to say not just how many people will be at your event, but what kind of person, what is their disposable income, and the more information you can give people as to what type of customer is going to be there, the better. But as I say, in esports, it's almost certainly likely to be youth focused, and that is going to be the key is pitching to brands to say about the youth audience, about where the business is coming from that youth audience. What can really grow this? I have seen interest from, there are people in Africa who can pull an audience of 10,000 easily, and some of the music stars that are there are having millions of followers on Instagram and everything else. So particularly, you've got some massive stars from Nigeria, Kenya. We have Salty Soul, we have others, but and even some pretty big artists coming out of South Africa now. So even DRC has got some pretty good musicians. Tanzania, these can pull those sorts of audience. I see that there's some interest. I've seen some interest from some of these, some of the music stars, and some of the management companies have shown an interest in esports. So look to that. I mean, if anybody, you want to call up, these guys are quite accessible. I think they may be rock stars, but some of them are more accessible than you think they are. And maybe associating your brand with people like that can pull in big audiences. So anything's possible, but I certainly there's definitely an overlapping audience between the music industry and the gaming industry.
Okay, thank you for that, Ben. You mentioned being accessible. Another challenge that I have noticed is most communities reach out to brands. Not everyone has the accessibility to the direct link of the brand manager or the marketing manager, or even a personality such as yourself. And if you just randomly send an email, no response. If you try and reach out on LinkedIn, still no response. Now for the community, what would be your advice to go about how to go about that?
Yeah, good question. I think growing you've got to grow a certain social media presence to attract attention, and by doing that, look, I follow gaming on and gaming communities on social media, and that's how we met. So we met on just for the audience here, we met it together on Twitter. But I think people in marketing and marketing departments, that there's more and more digital marketing and more power of digital marketing at the moment. So that is where they're looking, and if they're seeing influencers and brand influencers coming up on those social medias, that is likely where you're going to meet your customers.
Okay, thank you for that. So let's round up with this question. What are you expecting, or what do you foresee for esports in Africa next year, or in the next 2 to 5 years?
Yeah, it's going to grow. A number of challenges are holding back gaming, and I've talked about, from the infrastructural side, I've talked about gaming servers on the continent. But the reason for that is that the size of the gaming market of paying players is too small. So I think the gaming cafes are pretty important. So places where people can go, and if they don't own a PlayStation at home, they can go and pay $1 an hour to use a PlayStation and play the latest games. I'm sure I know you have them in Lagos. I've not been to Lagos for a very long time, but we have many of them in Kenya, and we've been trying to connect them up to fast internet as well. They play an important piece of it. I think the esports can grow. It's the biggest piece of it, because it's growing communities in gaming. It is making gaming into a social thing, as are the gaming cafes. It's no longer sitting in your own bedroom on your own PlayStation, making gaming into being a social activity. So they're really important. But then the other piece is locally relevant games, and games telling African stories by African developers, the plots and things like that. And even there hasn't been all much fuss about it, but a premium game that came out this year was WRC 9, so the World Rally Championship, 9th edition, and the WRC should have returned to Kenya this year. It should have come back in 2020, but COVID, they didn't travel, so they should have had a rally stage. But the game has still got Kenyan rally drivers, Kenyan rally stages in the game. But I haven't seen any hype about this. I go to the game store in Kenya, and they're not even highlighting the fact that this game has got it's got this Kenyan activity in it. So somebody's missing out on something. But that's going to grow. It all has to grow together. So it's a combination of the speed of internet, the affordability of internet, the affordability of devices, starting with mobile phones, going to laptop gaming PCs, consoles. There's a new console war coming up, and I've been trying to get hold of a PS5. But, there's going to be cloud gaming. There's a lot's going to come, and they're going to have a big influence on us as network designers. We have to think about building high-speed, resilient networks to cater for this, and that's part of my interest in this. Is how do I plan and architect a Pan-African network to be able to cope with 1 billion young people, all playing video games? Because right now we've got a few challenges.
Mm-hmm. Oh wow! Thank you very much. Someone said the PS5 is a struggle.
Yeah, I couldn't get one. I've been in the UK for about 3 or 4 weeks, and I came here. I had to have 14 days quarantine. So I came. I wanted to buy one, and then just sit and play my games. Because I was stuck in the house for 2 weeks. Didn't work out for me. That I should have ordered it in July or something. I think if I wanted to get one.
Yeah,
So
it was. Yeah, it's quite ridiculous because I know a few stores will say it's going live at 4 p.m. and you're there refreshing and refreshing, and before 4:01 it's sold out.
Right. Yeah.
So I think Sony and Xbox need to do something about that. Either the bots are messing everything up, or it's actually going. But hopefully, we will get it right. So
Maybe
Ben,
Santa Claus will be. Maybe if I've been good, Santa Claus will bring one. Yeah.
he should. He should. You have been wonderful. You've been wonderful for esports in Africa as a whole. So you should be top of the list for Santa Claus to give you a PlayStation 5.
Yeah, that'd be
All,
appreciated.
all right, Ben. Thank you. That's all the time we have. Thank you so much for discussing with us about esports brand partnerships. We look forward to seeing what Liquid Telecoms has for the ecosystem, and hopefully we can always get you back to chat with us. About more stuff, the advancement of esports in Africa. So thank you very much.
Wonderful. It's been a pleasure. Thank you.
All right then. So to all our viewers, it was nice having you on. The audio will be out in a few days, so you can always, whatever podcast platform you use, you can always catch the interview. It's going to be interesting. Go ahead and share, and let your friends know more about it. And once again, thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next time.
Okay.